to the A to Z Sports Big Orange Podcast. I am Charlie Burris, here as always with my co-host, the A to Z Sports Tennessee writer, Zach Reagan. Wherever you listen throughout the world, we thank you so much for listening to us. Zach and I talk everything balls every week here on the Big Orange Podcast. And if that sounds good to you, make sure that you go over and rate, review, and most importantly, subscribe to the A to Z Sports Podcast Network feed on Apple, Spotify. Because if you do subscribe, you won't miss the shows when we drop them on Mondays. But also on Mondays, make sure you go and subscribe to the A to Z Sports YouTube channel, because that way you can see the show with your own two eyes and potentially participate in it too. If you want to come hang out, obviously it is live, 4 p.m. on Mondays. And you can comment, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and you can literally be a part of the show. I'm at Charlie_Burris. At Zach TNT is Zach on Twitter, at A to Z Sports. Facebook.com/A to Z Sports Nashville, and A to Z Sports.com for all the stuff that Zach and I write on the internet. Never a dull week in Tennessee sports, Zach. It is a literal impossibility. You can't do it. Now, it makes doing a show like this the easiest thing in the world because we have stuff to talk about constantly. But it makes being a Tennessee fan a little stressful. A news-packed week that was defined, I would say, by a, how would you put it, a baseball scandal. We'll talk about it here. Zach, what's up, man?
Yeah, I was wondering when I woke up this morning, I was like, all right, what all are we going to discuss today? And by noon, a little after noon, the whole show is pretty much mapped out for us, and we really didn't have to do any work. So that's always, that's a plus. That's how it is during football season.
More than enough to talk about every damn time. It does not matter because that's just Tennessee sports. Now on today's show, it's going to be baseball. So right before we came on here, Maui Ahuna, Tony Vitello, the long national nightmare is over. They're both cleared to come back by the merciful, the great NCAA that I wish would burn to the ground. They're going to be back, and that's great news. We're going to talk about that in just a second. Basketball absolutely annihilated South Carolina, but then also lost to Texas A&M over the last week since the last we spoke, Zach. And then finally, and this is really, we're going to talk about this in the middle, in between basketball and baseball, but Tennessee football got a surprise, kind of out of the blue commitment from a 4-star wide receiver. We're going to discuss that also, but before we get into it, I got to tell you about all of our great sponsors. Superbook Sports. There's no better place to wager on your favorite sports than Superbook Sports. Go to superbook.com and download their app today. Superbook Sports, Rattle and Snap, Tennessee whiskey from Log Still Distillery. Make your own luck, just like Tennessee football's fast-paced Rattle and Snap offense with Rattle and Snap Tennessee whiskey. Omaha Steaks. Get $30 off your order of perfectly aged steaks, juicy burgers, and decadent desserts with our promo code VOLS. That is VOLS. That is Omaha Steaks and Farm Bureau Health Plans for better health, better coverage, and better rates. Go to fbhb.com/ATOZ. Farm Bureau Health Plans. Now let's get right into it. Baseball this weekend, after what we talked about last weekend, I don't know how you would say a slow start to the season. They started off 1-2 out in the desert in Arizona and came back home and mopped the floor with a couple of directional schools, and they've now won 5 straight. Pitching in these games was really just top-notch. Blake Burke was explosive with a bat in his hands. There was even a fun bat flip, a controversial bat flip, at least among Arkansas fans. Did you watch any of these games, Zach?
Yeah, I definitely saw the bat flip, and that was one of the most entertaining bat flips I think I've ever seen. And it kind of brought you back to, okay, this is a different team than 2022, but they still have that same swagger. They're still the villains of college baseball, which I know me and you both totally embrace. I think most Tennessee fans feel the same way. And pretty much every non-Tennessee baseball fan cannot stand the Vols at this point, unless they just enjoy fun baseball. There are those guys out there, but it seems for the most part, every comment you see is just talking about what a disgrace Tony Vitello is. And they talked about, I saw one comment that discussed all of Tony Vitello's trash talk, and I don't remember Vitello really talking trash ever. I mean, do you? It's he lets the
No,
team be themselves, but he's not out there talking junk to other teams. I
he
mean, I think
should. He should do
oh
that.
yeah, he should. I think the Bengals head coach talked more trash to the Chiefs before the AFC Championship game than I've heard Tony Vitello talk. So I don't really know where that comes from. It kind of tells you that people just kind of watch Tennessee from a distance, and their reputation precedes them. So that's just what they assume. But yeah, it was good to see them get back, kind of find their groove. That first season of the series, or the first series of the season, was against some tough teams. They pretty much a true road crowd, a more raucous crowd than what you're used to seeing early in the season in February like that. And probably a good test for Tennessee. But just like we said then, there was no reason to think less of this team just because of that tough opening weekend when they didn't have a couple of key players and again playing a couple of really good teams. So this is the Tennessee baseball we kind of expected to see, and they should only get better from here with Maui Ahuna slated to make his debut on Tuesday.
Yeah, big news today, because we we should say before we get into actually talking about the news from today, Maui Ahuna did not get cleared for this weekend, even though Tennessee won all of the games in relatively easy fashion against Dayton and Alabama A&M, right?
Yes, yes.
I mean, they were simple games even without Maui Ahuna, but Maui Ahuna still not cleared. And that was absolute BS. I mean, you're just taking the kid's season from him, taking away, potential time he could be playing in front of MLB scouts, making himself money. Literally stealing money out of the young man's pockets is an embarrassment, and it's a shame. But he was not allowed to play in that series. But then on top of that, it came out Friday night, just out of the blue. There were sort of rumblings all day that day on Friday. Just weirdness, where it was like, is Maui going to play? Is it? And then Maui, not only did Maui not get cleared, but Tony Vitello gets suspended for what turned out to be the 3 games of the weekend. And the rationalization that you've heard flying around from the folks that you were talking about that absolutely hate Tennessee is that there was tampering in the recruitment of Maui Ahuna, and no one does that but Tennessee, except everybody does that. Everybody in college sports at a major level does this stuff now. That's why you, as a coach in college sports, now have to just re-recruit your players constantly. And I mean, do I doubt that Tony Vitello probably did some of the stuff that people are saying? What was it like, flying out there and recruiting the kid too early or before?
I think they booked him a flight or something before they had his transcripts. Is the kind of the story going around?
Well, whatever it was, I mean, even if it was the very worst version, because some of what I've seen is that it was Tony before the kid even went into the transfer portal. Vitello was in Kansas talking to this kid. Obviously, I have no confirmation one way or another if that happened. Even if it was that, look at like an LSU that got like every major transfer kid in America this past year. You think LSU wasn't loaded up on a plane going to talk to this kid at NC State that they got that was like the best hitter in America last year? You don't think that there was tampering there? Going from an ACC school to an SEC school, one major school to another? I mean, are you kidding me? And this is all, obviously, we all know this. This is just the NCAA grasping at the final straws of its total irrelevancy. They're just hanging on by an absolute thread. They have nothing left because they can't enforce anything in basketball. They can't enforce anything in football. And so they go, well, maybe basketball. Or the thing that you saw over the weekend with those the TikTok chicks from Miami. The Miami women's basketball is getting hit. 2 of the best women's college basketball players that are apparently, from what they're like famous on TikTok apparently. And some donor took them out to dinner or invited them to his house or something. And now the NCAA, they've come knocking because it's very imperative now that NIL's in place that the NCAA still sticks its nose in your business. I hate every part of this. And Tennessee, it feels vindictive at this point, I guess, for not just towards Tennessee, but in that Miami situation too. It really is. It's just the NCAA just, dangling off the edge of the cliff, hoping that they don't finally fall off, I think.
For sure. I don't think it had as much to do with the fact that it was Tennessee. It's just the NCAA kind of trying to flex their muscle, what little they have left. I mean, if there's something that really, really bad that happened with Maui Ahuna, he got cleared. They basically suspended him for 8 games without actually suspending him, because if they could have suspended him, they would have done it. I mean, so they didn't have whatever they needed to make that an official ruling. So they just kind of drugged their feet like we've seen them do before. Guessing Tennessee felt like they needed to do something with Tony Vitello to protect him from any future penalties. I mean, Tennessee is basically, doing whatever the NCAA wants at this point when it comes to these investigations. We saw it with football. We've seen it with baseball. I really don't think the NCAA can go after them for too much. I don't know why you don't see it as much with some of the other programs that you mentioned, like LSU, but it is what it is. I mean, it's not going to impact Tennessee too much this season. They probably would have lost those first 2 games of the year anyway. I mean, baseball is one of those sports where one guy doesn't make that big of a difference, and really, unless it's a starting pitcher. So I don't think it really, costs them a win or a loss, though I'm sure some might feel differently. But even in baseball, it's not that big of a deal with it being such a long season. So it'll be fun to finally see Ahuna, hit the field on Tuesday against Charleston Southern, and hopefully he stays healthy and can show why he was such a coveted a prospect. And when it comes to tampering stuff, by the way, I mean, look at Sam Hartman at Notre Dame, right? That guy,
Seriously.
before he left Wake Forest, there were rumors that he was going to, maybe end up at Florida. Those are pretty strong rumors. And then, like, the minute he hit the portal, well, it sounds like he's going to Notre Dame. Well, the only way it sounds like he's going anywhere is if he's had a conversation with somebody, because how else do you know if they want you? How do you know if there's a spot? How do you know if you even want to go if you haven't talked to the coaches? There's no way that you can even have an idea that that's where you want to land unless there's been a conversation. And all these reporters immediately, said, hey, he's going to Notre Dame. And that's where he ended up. So that, to me, that's just like the prime example of tampering and how, it does happen. Everybody's doing it. It's not worth getting worked up over. I'd almost rather they just do it out in the open. Just let them do it at this point. They're going to do it anyway. Just let them do it. I mean, why not? That way you don't have to worry about breaking the rules. Hey, keep your guy or don't. Out recruit other teams or don't. Make better offers or don't. It's that simple. It's like free agency anyway. Might as well just do it. It's not going back.
Well, I do have a couple of other questions to pose to you, Zach, about that particular situation before we move on. But before we have that final conversation about the freeing of Maui and Tony V, I do have to tell you about our first great sponsor of the show this week, and that is Superbook Sports. Make 2023 the year you beat Vegas. Superbook gives you the chance every week to go head-to-head with the best odds makers in Las Vegas. No fancy computer algorithms, no guys across the pond setting lines for American sports. Just the best team of odds makers in the business behind the counter at Superbook in Las Vegas. Plus, Superbook features some of the best odds boosts and promo bets you will find anywhere. Download the Superbook Sports app or visit superbook.com and start your battle against Vegas right now. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-889-9789. That is Superbook Sports. Go download it right now because the NCAA tournament is coming up. You know what's amazing to bet on? The NCAA tournament. I mean, if you want a fun weekend, obviously you can just watch the games, but betting on them and winning money on them is even better. As someone who has firsthand experience in that winning money on it and losing money on it, because the NCAA tournament obviously is very wild. It's really a heck of a time. I suggest it highly. So go to superbooksports.com and download their app. Now, looking through the comments, we got some of the usual suspects over here already weighing in. Nugs is here. Roger, John, Hill, Mr. Jones. Of course, Big Ten Jeff, always here to rile everybody up in the comments. We thank everybody for weighing in. If you do have a comment, leave it there. Obviously, wherever you may be watching, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, whatever it may be, just leave your comments there, and we do like to look at them and respond to them. But to finish up that conversation about Maui and Tony V, the question that I walk away wanting answered is, where does this end with Tennessee and the NCAA? Because it feels like the genesis of it, things were happening before Pruitt, but it just feels like the NCAA is just knocking down your door, and Tennessee has complied and complied and complied and complied and complied. I mean, is there not going to be a point where we lawyer up and tell these guys to go shove it? I just am so, because this was, again, self-imposed essentially by Tennessee. Specifically with Tony V. We don't know the exact specifics of Maui Ahuna, I guess, but with Tony V, I think Tennessee actually officially said they were self-imposing this, I think, in the statement. So, and are we not just going to tell these guys to screw off? I'm so tired of it. I tweeted it out on the night of all that happening. I said, never, ever comply with the criminal cartel. The NCAA, you give them an inch, they're going to want to take a mile, and you're giving them that remaining relevancy, and it I hate it. There has to be a time where we just go no more, and maybe the Pruitt thing has to be solved first. I don't know.
Well, I think in the past it's been, when it happened with Donnie Tyndall, Tennessee was okay. This guy hasn't really proven himself. There's a lot going on there. We're not putting ourselves out there to defend this guy and to try to keep him. Same thing with Jeremy Pruitt. I mean, we were talking about firing Jeremy Pruitt before that investigation ever happened. Me and you wanted to fire him after the Kentucky game that year when they lost at home, and he fired the defensive line coach at halftime. So there was no way Tennessee was going to fight to keep him either. Now, with this Tony Vitello stuff, I mean, I don't think that it's going to turn into anything major. But if you follow Tennessee for any length of time, there's that little part of you that, as good as things are going right now, is like, God, there's something bad around the corner. Baseball's great, basketball's great, football's great. Is something going to happen to Tony Vitello and Tennessee loses him over something stupid like this? I don't think that's going to happen, by the way. I'm not trying to suggest that or scare anybody. I've seen some people concerned about that already. But I think it's the same feeling what I'm talking about. It's just like, okay, something bad's going to happen. I think we're at a point now, though, with Danny White where if something were to happen, he's probably going to go to bat for Tony Vitello. He's popular. He's a good coach. He's brought this program to incredible heights and has them, relevant nationally. They're one of the most talked about college baseball programs in the nation. It's everything that Danny White wants: attention, the right attention, winning, just the culture, everything that he's about. You have there with Tony Vitello. So I do think he would fight and to keep him. And I think that might be part of the reason why you saw this self-imposed suspension is they're kind of being proactive and making sure that this doesn't turn into something bigger. I think it's all about leadership. You can go back to Bruce Pearl and the way all that played out. I think with Danny White, it's just going to be a different process. I think he does have, the personality to go up against the NCAA when it's the right time. I think he knows how to play it kind of the right way. We've seen it with the way the NCAA stuff has panned out, which, he kind of took over shortly after arriving in Knoxville. He knows when it's the right time to kind of bow up and say, hey, we're not going to do what you want us to do. We're going to do it our way. Come get us. Come penalize us, chase us down. Let's see how this goes. Exactly. He knows when that time will be, and hopefully he doesn't have to do that. But I do think he's the guy that would stand up against the NCAA.
I hope so, sooner rather than later, because Nugs makes a great point here in the comments. In 20 years, we will look back and wonder how the hell we let the NCAA meddle in everyone's business for so long. That's exactly it. Just start now. Stop letting them meddle in your business. Tell these guys to go take a long walk up a short pier. That I can't stand it. And I think to kind of wrap up this conversation, a lot of Tennessee fans made this point. But I mean, you just look at the juxtaposition of Maui Ahuna sitting out. A kid who, again, even if Tony Vitello did the worst thing possible, that's not bad, but the worst thing possible, which again would be like, flying before the kid ever put his name in the transfer portal and trying to get him to Knoxville. Even if he did that, it wouldn't be anywhere close to the stuff we're seeing in Alabama. I mean, it's recruiting violations compared to a murder, a situation that involves a murder of a mother of a 5-year-old child. And that's what along with all the stuff that's been happening with Tennessee, I mean, obviously the craziest story in all of sports, period, is this whole thing with Brandon Miller at Alabama. And if we've learned anything this week about anything, it's that I'm pretty sure Nate Oates doesn't have a brain in his head. It's just like rocks up there. I don't know what that dude was doing this whole week. Brandon Miller with the doing the pat down thing the
The
other night.
Alabama fans cheering him and standing ovations.
What are you doing?
How
I mean,
surreal was that watching him in that South Carolina game, like the day
unbelievable.
after? It was so weird watching all that happen.
So I guess I'll give my
Yep. Just go for it.
I'll give my quick take on it, because I don't want to go too deep on it, because it just this whole thing.
It's a
just
big
makes
story.
Me,
It's
I mean,
huge.
biggest
It's
story.
the one time like every national columnist is pretty much united with fans of other schools. It's everybody except Alabama. Everyone's united in how they feel about this, pretty much, and that never happens. So
Yeah, there was just across the board kind of outrage. I mean, Ben says in the comments here, Nate Oates just doesn't care. I think that's absolutely true. This, to me, just reeks of the biggest example ever of avoiding a situation because you're a star athlete. And I know this is my opinion. Let me start this entire conversation off by saying everything concerning this murder, it's all alleged, supposedly, it's still a legal proceeding in a court of law at this moment, even where the revelations that came out were even just a pretrial hearing where all of this happened. But this kid, according to the state of Alabama, broke no laws. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. Now, in my personal opinion, I think unequivocally the only reason that he does not have charges levied against him is because he is a star athlete at the University of Alabama. That is my personal opinion, and it is absolutely what I think. I saw Stephen A. Smith make a great point. I don't say that often. I don't think many people say that often. But I saw Stephen A. Smith talking about this. He made a great point. He said, there are other states that have much stricter gun laws, and unequivocally he would have been charged as an accessory to murder here. Like, that's how close of a line this kid was walking in this situation. And the thing that takes it over the top for me is the text message that was brought to light in court, where the guy who's being charged with capital murder, one of the two that's being charged with capital murder,
Miles and Davis.
I think Miles sent the text. Davis did the shooting, allegedly, supposedly. But the text to Brandon Miller that said, "Bring me my piece," somebody's been faking, which I'm not hip with the kids. Looked it up, and that supposedly means like somebody stepped to you and said they were going to fight you, but did they like back down because they're like a wuss or whatever? Supposedly, that's what that means. Sent this text message to Brandon Miller, and Alabama's defense has been, "Oh, well, he was already on the way to go see these guys. He probably didn't even see the text. There's no proof whether he did or not, but he probably didn't even open it. He probably didn't even know." Regardless, this dude transported the weapon to the scene of the murder. Allegedly. Supposedly there's surveillance footage too. I read it all up on the Tuscaloosa local news or Birmingham local news. I tried to do as much research as I could. But it's an ignorance plea. He didn't know what he was walking into. He didn't know. Here's why that doesn't matter at all. No matter what happened, this kid made a mistake. It could have been knowingly or it could have been unknowingly. Obviously, the law says it was unknowingly, and so he gets off on that. But he made a mistake, period. And he was hanging out with the wrong people, and he was hanging out with the wrong people at 2 a.m. And so that alone should have resulted in some amount of accountability. And like, to me, what I think could have gotten this entire PR nightmare off of Alabama's back would have simply just been going, you suspend him for 5 to 10 games. They still would have won plenty of games in that stretch without him, although they probably would have lost, I don't know, 2 or 3 more. But they would have been a fine NCAA tournament team, probably still would have won the SEC, and it would have been just fine. And, Nate Oates went out there and he had to be as greedy as possible. And like Ben said in the comments, he doesn't care at all. And they brushed it all off and said, "Oh, he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Wrong place, so we can't punish him. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time. You can't punish anybody for that." And so, it's this PR nightmare. Nate Oates is an idiot, just goes out there, humiliates himself, makes an idiot out of himself. And all of that is happening where Alabama's just shamelessly doing all of this. And this kid with the pat down and the Twitter, he put himself being in the last couple of days. the picture of him being patted down, he made that his banner on Twitter, like purposefully made that his banner on Twitter. I'm like, who are we dealing with here? This kid's vindictive. This kid's like mocking now at this point, it appears. And through all that, the person that's suspended is Maui Ahuna in Tennessee baseball. Are you kidding me? Get out of town. I could fume on this for hours and hours and hours. I'm sorry, Zach. That was a lot.
No, it had to get out at some point because I think most people feel the same way. I mean, look, Alabama could have just suspended him out of respect for the family until they figure out what's going on. I get that you got to let the process play out. But let's be honest, like you just said, you're going there at that time of the night. You kind of know it's probably not a good situation. If you're a star player and you're thinking about it from the business standpoint, you're a star player. You're gonna be a millionaire in months. I mean, not long. You're gonna be a high draft pick in the NBA lottery. Why would you even consider putting yourself in those kinds of situations? Ugh. And somebody lost their life, somebody lost a mother. It's like, can we not be a little sensitive to that? I mean, whatever. Sometimes people go overboard. I just think you got to have a conscience there and do what you think what's the right thing to do. And I don't think Nate Oates is doing the right thing because universally, pretty much everybody, nobody feels like he's doing the right thing, and he's come across very just crass and like he doesn't really care. And he first apologies for the statements that he makes, like the wrong place, wrong time thing, which is probably it's going to haunt him forever. I mean, he is probably he will never get one of these major jobs after this, I don't think, unless it's a program that just really does not care. So maybe if Bruce Pearl gets fired, Auburn would go down that road since they don't seem to mind hiring questionable characters. But beyond that, I mentioned it to you. I think Danny White, he was a Danny White guy at Buffalo. I think Danny White has to disavow Nate Oates after this because of everything that's happened and the way he's handled this situation. I don't think you could, if something ever happens with Rick Barnes, Rick Barnes is nearing retirement. Whenever he wants to do that and makes that choice, I don't think that's a guy that can be on your list anymore at all.
The situation, it just makes me sick, the whole situation, because there is just such a stark difference between these two things where, I mean, a recruiting violation is one thing and being shameless about that. I'm in fact, for the most part, if Alabama was shamelessly going about recruiting violations because of my want for the end of the NCAA, I would probably be cheering them to a certain extent. I actually like Memphis and Penny Hardaway just like shamelessly flaunted what that kid a few years ago and put him out there when the NCAA was trying to crack down. And I was like, good for them. Good for them for standing up to the NCAA. This is just such a different thing. I mean, a life was ended and taken from this earth, a life that was a mother to a 5-year-old child. This is not some laughing matter or something that can just be chalked up to, it's just college sports, wrong place, wrong time, blah, 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 blah. It's unconscionable to me. There needs to be consequence of some kind. There's not going to be. This is Alabama. They're completely shameless and unscrupulous and moralless. But man, I don't know. It was just crazy having the kid at Tennessee suspended while this kid goes out and scores 41 points at Alabama. I mean, what more can you say? Just the difference there. I don't have a whole lot more about it other than to just say, like, good Lord, I hope we get to play them in the SEC tournament and just beat them and just somebody. I don't want to see these guys win a single damn thing this season. And I would bet that that's true nationwide outside of singularly Alabama fans. And like as far as Alabama fans go and the whole cheering him, the hypocrisy here, because every single one of those people knows without a doubt in their mind that if this was Pearl doing this at Auburn, if this was Rick Barnes at Tennessee doing this at Tennessee, they would be rioting in the streets, wanting these schools burned down. They would be indignant beyond belief. And yet he didn't know. He's just an innocent, beautiful little butterfly. He had no idea. And he can't be held accountable. He's a child. He's a 20-year-old child. You can't know anything at 20. And I don't even know. And even in saying that, like a good example of a past situation that was very different. Nobody died, but somewhat similar in terms of, except in a different way, a player actually got punished, was Bruce at Tennessee, Tyler Smith. Tyler Smith got kicked off the basketball team for getting a gun charge, if I'm thinking correctly. I think it might have been gun and drug, but still, at least at Tennessee, Bruce did something about it. That's unbelievable. But regardless, anything else with Ahuna or Alabama?
No, I mean that pretty much covers it when it comes to Alabama. It's been it's been unfortunate to watch all that unfold. And at the end of the day, it really is about, the 5-year-old that doesn't have a mother anymore. I mean, that's the person that hurts the most out of every single bit of this. It's not Alabama fans. It's not other SEC fans. It's the kid. And that's the tragedy of all this. Nothing's changing that.
Absolutely. Absolutely tragic. Horrific stuff. And Alabama parades around like it never happened. Good for them. All right. So now switching gears to a genuinely positive thing. I guess that in a technical sense, that first segment was positive because Maui Ahuna and Tony V are back with Tennessee baseball, and that's great. And I'm excited to see Ahuna play. But Tennessee had more positive news today. They recruit J.J. Harrell, 4-star wide receiver, committed to the Vols, and we're going to talk about it in just a second. But first, I got to tell you about Farm Bureau Health Plans, another great sponsor of ours. Farm Bureau Health Plans has been serving Tennesseans for over 75 years. Much has changed in Tennessee over the years, but some has stayed the same. Farm Bureau Health Plans has always valued personal relationships, especially when it comes to good health and good service. Plan on Farm Bureau Health Plans for health, dental, and vision. For better coverage, better rates, and better service, go to fphb.com/ATOZ or walk into one of their 200-plus locations across the state. That is fphb.com/ATOZ. Farm Bureau Health Plans. Thanks to them for supporting the show. J.J. Harrell, out of nowhere for the most part. I mean, I saw even recruiting guys just kind of being like, this was unexpected. And the main reason that this commitment was unexpected to Tennessee is because this kid is from northern Mississippi, and the common knowledge around him was that he was really looking at going to Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin, and Tennessee gets the steal. What did you think of this, Zach?
I think this is where you're kind of seeing what we talked about, the Nico effect kind of showing up. And it hurt. I remember who we had spoke to about recruiting. Maybe it was Matt Ray when we talked to him earlier this month. That talked about we would see kind of this down the road, how he would impact recruiting. And because the 2023 class was somewhat already set with a lot of those guys. Well, a big reason why Harold committed to Tennessee was because of Nico. He told 24 or On 3 that Nico was a big reason that was the quarterback that he wanted to play with. If he could choose anybody, it would be Nico. So you'll probably see, more of this in the coming years. And as Tennessee continues to build this program and get top quarterback commits, because I think, Nico should not be the last one that they get. This will continue to be a trend for Tennessee. And it's kind of like a, trickle down effect where you get the quarterback, you can get the wide receivers. It just kind of all fills in around them, and you can really get some momentum going. So really good pickup for Tennessee. He sounds like a guy that just loves playing football and wants to do whatever's asked from him on the field. We use this comparison a lot, but kind of has that Jawan Jennings mindset. I don't know if he'll be quite the dog that Jennings was. They don't make many like him, but that's his style of play. Like, that's the kind of guy you're getting. A little bit more explosive, though, more of a playmaker. Jennings was limited in his speed. Didn't hurt him too much at Tennessee, of course, or even in the NFL, just because of the way he plays. But I think it's a guy that Tennessee fans are really like the way he plays.
I love the general optics of this. On top of him, obviously, it seems like being a pretty dynamic athlete, and that's great. But the win over Kiffin here illustrates something that I think is really great, outside of just, beating out the guy that was formerly your coach and kind of screwed you over. But beyond that, it kind of shows that Josh Heupel, because of this last season and just everything that's happened with his offense, in recruiting, he's genuinely viewed differently. And I did a show over the weekend with Mark Rogers. He calls himself Voice of College Football on YouTube. Go find his channel after you watch this. He does great stuff. But I was talking with him, and he actually said, I watch Josh Heupel throughout the season, and I just said, oh, what he's doing is different. Like he's different from all these other dudes. He's doing things that other guys simply aren't doing. And I feel like this is exact proof positive of recruits seeing it that exact way. Like if you go to Tennessee, this deal is different, especially when you're a wide receiver. Jalen Hyatt obviously coming off of a Bolitnikoff and the crazy production that entire that entire Tennessee offense had. I mean, it it was wild and it stands out. And even within I would say honestly, an elite offensive guy like Kiffin, he really has been one of the leading guys in college football in terms of this offense. Josh Heupel still sets himself apart from even that. Like what he has done is just crazily impressive, and it impresses these recruits. You honestly, you can't say enough about that and the way that it's paying dividends. But I like your point about Nico. I hadn't necessarily thought about that, but that's absolutely. I don't know why I didn't think about that. Obviously, I would bet that that's a part of this because that's who this kid will be playing ball with. Like that, theoretically, his first 2 years, he would be. Nico would probably be his quarterback. So, uh, a pickup like this is just exact confirmation of everything that we've been hoping would come to fruition. Where we talked about, after the Alabama game, oh, this is going to take recruiting to the earth level. At the Florida game, the LSU game, we sort of had those conversations where it's like the perception of this changes. But then you look at the body of work in totality and the way that this offense has just shined at a national level and been so impressive. Dudes are noticing it, and it's great to see it finally paying off.
Yeah, I don't know if Tennessee, obviously they're not quite in that Alabama, Georgia realm yet because they have to win the championship. They have to prove those things. But I do think they're pretty much, I feel like we can pretty much cement them among like perennial top 10 teams in the country. Like they're in that what Oklahoma was with Lincoln Riley, where they're going to be a playoff contender, especially now with the expanded playoff pretty much every year. Like the thing's rolling right now exactly like they don't need anything else to happen. It's only going to get better from here. If they don't even have like, if you took all the talent on Tennessee's roster, it's not a top 10 talent, not a top 10 roster in terms of talent, if that makes sense. They're not there yet, but they're performing at that level. So if you get a couple of top 10 classes in a row, in theory, they're going to be even better, right? They're going to be even more in that top 5 range, more of a contender to win a championship. So there's really, the only thing that could slow them down is something happening to Josh Heupel, which obviously, you can't forecast something like that, but there's nothing on the horizon that suggests anything is going to happen there. Heupel's a upstanding guy, handles himself the right way, handles the program the right way. Hasn't even been a hint of any shadiness happening with him leading the program. He's not going anywhere. He's happy at Tennessee. I wouldn't even be that worried if the Oklahoma job opened at this point, just because I don't think that's what he wants. I think he's exactly where he wants to be. And he's got this thing moving in the right direction. It doesn't feel like there's any slowing it down right now.
I don't think there is. The only thing that could slow it down is maybe the results of this upcoming season. It does make me a little bit nervous because obviously you're selling really what comes after this season. That's what they're selling to these current recruits. But if you can have another season compounding where you show that success again and with a different quarterback this time, just think like that's how you get to truly elite recruiting. You do have to prove it to these kids. This isn't, we've said it plenty, but like he didn't come here with a silver spoon in his mouth like Kirby at Georgia, where Rick had done a good job recruiting and had a lot of elite players, but just hadn't, won those big games. And, it wasn't like that here. It was a total rebuild, a total teardown. And he's just putting the walls back up. And so, I don't want to say it scares me this upcoming season, but it excites me maybe that if they can have another similar season, that's where you can probably launch into regularly dealing with elite recruits like a Georgia, like an Alabama is doing already. I think it might take that. But for now, in this situation, this kid's a borderline blue chip. If, 4-star, I think he's number 205 in America, maybe in the 247 composite. Oh, no, 104. So I was thinking I added 100 spots. So yeah, he's plenty near the top in terms of recruits. It's a great pickup. And so I love it, but it is still at the end of the day, this is still a foundational thing. Like you're still kind of building that foundation where I think hopefully if you continue this success into the future, that's when it will become the, where you're essentially recruiting nobody but blue chips. I also think bringing your defense along has something to do with that too. But it's exciting. I just think it's great because Heupel, I'll always go back to it probably the whole time that he's here, but just what's happened compared to the expectations I had with him coming in, it's just so crazy. Because everybody was like, can he recruit? I don't know if he can recruit. And man, look at him now. It's so impressive. So impressive.
Yeah, 2023 really is when Josh Heupel can kind of prove himself as a legitimate elite head coach. Obviously, Nick Saban is at the top of that list, and nobody's going to knock him off until he retires because of what he's accomplished. But if Heupel can take, this is supposed to be kind of a transition year for Tennessee. We have high hopes for Joe Milton. We know he has the talent to be great. He has the talent to be talked about in next year's draft like Will Levis and Anthony Richardson. In fact, he should be no matter what, because neither one of those two guys showed a ton in college, and they're both projected top 10 picks. Milton is just as physically impressive, if not more so, than both of those guys. But the story's Nico, 2024 and beyond. The story is some of these guys they're bringing in. Like that's the championship run. That's what we're expecting from Tennessee in 2024, 2025 to go compete for a championship. 2023 kind of feels like last year a little bit, where okay, we're thinking 10-3. Like 10-3 is a pretty good season. 10-3 keeps the momentum going. You lose to Alabama and Tuscaloosa. You drop the Georgia. Maybe they beat them. I don't know. But right now, I think we kind of have to assume that Georgia's the favorite in that matchup. And you can't count out, dropping another game like the South Carolina game. I don't think that's going to happen again. But those games are always possible in the SEC. You finish this season 10-3 in what's supposed to be a transition year. I think that really keeps that momentum going. Anything more than that, you go 11-2 again. I think you're really going to pick up some momentum then.
Yeah. Whew. Sky's the limit. I mean, we all know that. Tennessee was always a sleeping giant, and it's waking up, honestly, 11. You went 11-2, has woken up.
And but Jeff made a comment that I know you're actually going to agree with, because we've talked about it before about Georgia's schedule.
Oh yeah, he says just sucks that Tennessee won't make the SEC championship this year because UGA's schedule is so garbage. Well, what they have to beat Georgia.
Yeah, that's no easy task.
That is the thing. But yeah, their schedule is such an absolute joke this coming season. It's more of a joke than Ohio State's schedule.
And I was not to go too off on this too much, but I was kind of looking and projecting what Tennessee's schedule could look like under the new format when they're expected to go to the 3-6 model with 3 permanent opponents and 6 rotating opponents, which basically means an extra conference game, and you play, Georgia every other year. You play LSU every other year, Texas A&M. You're going to play these teams every 2 years, so you're really not escaping Georgia that much. When you don't have Georgia on the schedule, you're probably going to have LSU or Auburn or another pretty good SEC team, and Florida also is going to be in there. And I don't think they're going to be down for that long. It'd be nice if they are, but they're going to be a tough game every time it's a rivalry game. So even in the future, that schedule's still going to be tough. Good thing it's going to a 12-team playoff, because I really think you're not going to see that many undefeated seasons, because Georgia's schedule should get tougher. They're going to have to play tougher teams. They're not going to get the weak crossover opponent like they get sometimes, where they might luck out and play Auburn when they're not so great, and whoever their crossover is this year, it's probably Mississippi State or something, I'm sure.
It's a total joke. I don't remember which team it is exactly, but it's pathetic.
No,
we know that much, but there's that as far as sort of current football news. There was a little bit of recruiting stuff this week that you wrote a little bit about. That's just Tennessee getting a visit from some big recruits. There's kind of been some smoke around some different guys, Jarrett Gibson and a couple other guys, but nothing to necessarily report in terms of movement towards committing to Tennessee or anything like that. But we'll obviously keep tabs on it. And before we move away from football, I want to talk about the Combine coming up this weekend. It starts on the 28th, February 28th, and a bunch of Tennessee players are going to be at the Combine, and we're going to discuss that in just 1 second after I tell you about Omaha Steaks. Now, long-time sponsor of the show at this point, almost a year they've been with us. Spring is in the air, and that can only mean one thing: spring grilling. The steak experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to spring into something delicious with their semi-annual sale. It starts February 22nd, so it has begun. And you can get 50% off site-wide. Grab all your favorites like perfectly aged tender steaks, ocean fresh seafood, juicy burgers, air-chilled chicken, and decadent desserts. Plus, when you go to omahasteaks.com and use promo code VOLS at checkout, that is VOLS, you'll get an additional $30 off your order. It's the perfect way to get fired up and spring into something special. Don't wait. Go to omahasteaks.com, use promo code VOLS at checkout, and take advantage of this deal. Gotten the Omaha Steaks here. It is absolutely phenomenal. Super high quality, comes right to your door. Honestly, can't say enough about the convenience. How good is it? Seriously, the quality is super high. So get it. Omaha Steaks is ready to ship to your order right away, and you're going to want to hurry because 50% off site-wide is only happening for a limited time. Don't miss your chance to save. Visit omahasteaks.com. Use promo code VOLS at checkout to get it $30 off when you shop the semi-annual sale today. Minimum order may be required. That is Omaha Steaks, promo code VOLS. Now on to the Combine with Tennessee and its players. Let me make sure I noted everybody that was invited from Tennessee's team. It is Hendon Hooker, Jalen Hyatt, Cedric Tillman, Darnell Wright, Byron Young, Jeremy Banks, and Paxton Brooks, all invited to the Combine to participate. And this is big because I looked at some mock drafts this morning for just different NFL sites. And on one, Jalen Hyatt and Darnell Wright were both in the first round. Then I looked at another. Jalen Hyatt was like 17th overall in one of the mock drafts I looked at. I want to say that was on USA Today or one of those sites. So some of these guys are really getting thought of highly. And it's exciting because obviously from what we were just talking about, guys going to the NFL can be huge for recruiting. And so hopefully some of these dudes show out at the Combine.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised Jerome Carvin was not invited.
I agree.
I expect him to be drafted probably late 6th, 7th round. He's a guy that's got a lot of versatility. He's played all three interior spots: left guard, right guard, center. I think he allowed 1 sack total over the last 2 years, according to Tennessee's official website. So it's a guy that's produced at a high level, playing against the toughest opponents in the country, or some of the toughest opponents in the country. Really shocked that he's not being looked at a little differently. So unfortunate that he doesn't really get that chance to prove himself. Still think he'll get drafted late, like I said, and end up having a pretty good career. But that was one surprise for me when it comes to the Combine. Otherwise, I think you've got Jalen Hyatt. If he runs in that 4.2 range like he's hoping to, that should boost his stock up quite a bit, kind of like when John Ross that year ended up being like a top 10, 12 pick. Didn't turn out well for Ross. He had some good games, but couldn't really show any consistency. But that's what the Combine can do for your draft stock. I think if Cedric Tillman runs in the 4.4 range and has some good workouts, perhaps he could climb back into late in the first round, early second round. I think I'm actually a little bit higher on Tillman in the NFL than Hyatt. I really like Tillman's body control, just the way that he can adjust to some of these throws. In the tight windows in the NFL, that's really important. And not saying Hyatt can't do that. It's just something that Tillman really seemed to excel at Tennessee.
Yeah, Tillman's got that physicality in between him and Hyatt. He is just really good with those 50-50 balls. And
Hyatt was so fast that it was almost – he almost hurt himself not having to be in some of those situations. And it wasn't really his fault, It wasn't his fault.
He was open so much, which obviously is not a bad thing, but also didn't give him a chance to show off if he can fight through a contested catch. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm really excited in this case for Tillman. Byron Young, for sure, getting to show out, getting to show his physicality, because I think he could really show something. And then Jeremy Banks, too, because, Banks has always been kind of a physical freak. He just he struggled a little bit between the ears through the years.
Coverage wasn't his strongest suit.
Yeah. So he has some problems there. But the thing with that is some guys get to that level, and if they have the physical gifts, they can get to that level where football is their full-time job. Like they have nothing else to worry about
Mhm.
other than that, and they can concentrate on it 24/7. And then they end up really excelling to a point where you didn't think they could. I mean, I want to say, he wasn't always the most focused individual at any level of football, but like an
Banks,
air.
was it their reason that he didn't play in the bowl game?
Oh yeah, that's true. He's
So I
definitely
don't
got
know.
some off-the-field stuff to
Yeah,
work
I don't know
through.
if it was his full-time job, if class was.
That's true. But like some guys that I think about where like they didn't have the most elite college career and then ended up being really great. It's like an Arian Foster from Tennessee. It's like he didn't
Mhm.
have the best college career, went to the NFL and was one of the best running backs in the league for a few years there. And some guys it's what it takes for them to get there. And maybe he
Coaching, I
could
mean,
be.
coaching matters too.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And the fit and the system that you get put in, and there's a lot to it. I mean, obviously, if you get drafted by the Cleveland Browns, you can just sort of kiss your relevancy in the NFL goodbye, depending on what that makes a difference too, if you play for an actually good franchise or not. But there's just a lot that could be done in the combine this week for some of these dudes, and I'm excited to see what they can do. I hope that Tennessee gets more dudes drafted, and maybe get some unexpected guys in there.
Yeah, that's something Tennessee really needs to. That's another aspect that helps in recruiting. If Jalen Hyatt and Cedric Tillman go have good careers in the NFL, show that okay, yeah, we played in this simplified offense at Tennessee is what people like to say. Uh, they can show that hey, that didn't hold us back. It didn't hold us back from making the NFL, making an impact in the NFL at all. So that can help destroy some of those narratives. Because Velus Jones kind of had a shaky rookie season. It wasn't so much because of the system; he just couldn't hold on to the football, and drove Bears fans mad that he fumbled so many times. That's something that he's got to figure out. That doesn't really have anything to do with the system that he played in college. But that narrative is going to linger until a few players from Tennessee make it to the NFL and can kind of disprove that. Hopefully, Hyatt, Tillman, and perhaps Hendon Hooker. Sounds like he's going to be healthy. He's not throwing at the combine. I believe he will be there, but he's not going to participate in that. But sounds like he's going to be healthy for the season, is what people are saying. He thinks he's going to be ready by training camp. We'll see, but he's a guy that could play, for a team this year. I don't think he's going to get drafted in a spot where they want him to go be the starter. Obviously, that wouldn't make a lot of sense if you don't know for sure how his rehab is going until he's in your facility. But a team that, down the road is going to look at making a quarterback change, maybe the Las Vegas Raiders, Carolina Panthers, or Buccaneers, a couple of these teams that they don't have a top 4 pick. Raiders have a top 10 pick, but who knows how the draft is going to play out. Hooker could be a good fit for one of those teams. Maybe somebody goes and gets a Jimmy Garoppolo as kind of like a gap quarterback, and you bring Hooker in and kind of hope he can be the guy. Kind of like what the Titans did with Malik Willis. Hasn't really worked out yet for the Titans, but that would be the thought process there.
Yeah, I'm rooting so hard for Hooker, but he just has some of those drawbacks. We talked to Trevor Sikkema of Pro Football Focus on here a couple weeks ago, and he just brought up like age is such a big factor there because he's already advanced in age. He's still a young guy, but relative to the NFL, I mean, what's he, 26 or whatever?
25. He just turned 25 in January. So
25.
at the end of his first year, he'll be 26.
And I mean that factor alone, where you go like, okay, we get him in, he has the year to kind of sit and acclimate. Almost nobody comes into the league and is a starting quarterback in their first year, and by that time, when he's actually getting on the field, he's 27 in his rookie contract, and so that does concern me with that. And I think it was a great point by Trevor when he brought it up.
But if you're gonna, like, if you said, hey, you're going to draft Hendon Hooker and you're going to have a quality starting quarterback for 8 years, would you not take that? I mean,
Yeah,
because you don't.
that's what I was about to say.
Yeah, I mean, we see teams draft quarterbacks in the first round, top 10 all the time that they never pan out. They don't get them for 2 years, let alone 8.
Like to me, there is that factor again. Fair point by Trevor when he brought it up, but the thing with Hooker and where I'm rooting for him so hard is that he's such a good dude and he's so hardworking and he's such a great leader. And I think, like, really, if he can put his nose to the grindstone and really get after it, I think he could absolutely carve out a career in the NFL. Obviously, it comes down to being able to process at NFL speed and make the throws and do all those things. And with hard work, I think anything could be possible there. But he's just such an awesome guy. I want to see him succeed so badly. He deserves every bit of it. And I want to see that happen, but it's so tough to carve out a career as a quarterback in the NFL. But yeah, like there are dudes. Ryan Tannehill with the Titans had an absolute resurgence in his mid-30s with the Titans. Like it can happen. Plenty. Josh Dobbs didn't get a good chance until this season in the NFL, and I was glad he kind of showed out with the Titans, and I'm hoping he'll get a chance this coming season. And yeah, like Mr. Jones says it here. Hooker had 70 touchdowns and 5 interceptions in his time at Tennessee as a starter. Like, come on. There's got to be something there that a team could take advantage of at the NFL level. And I hope they do, because I really want to be able to root for that kid at the pro level, man. He's so awesome. But otherwise, I mean, we already mentioned it. Hyatt is on mock drafts in the first round. Darnell Wright is in mock drafts in the first round.
I can tell you with those two in particular, I would love to see Jalen Hyatt end up in Kansas City with the Chiefs. I think for him, that would be a dream situation. They could use a speed guy after losing Tyreek Hill last year, trading into the Dolphins. They're losing, I think, McCole Hardman and Valdez Scantling, I think, are free agents this year, so they could really use another speed guy. I mean, Hyatt's a perfect fit for that offense. And Kansas City is one of the – if there was an NFL team that's the most like Tennessee, it's the Chiefs. Andy Reid, it's a very collaborative process. He loves to promote from within. He just did it, just this past week for his offensive coordinator, Matt Nagy, that had been there before. But he does the same thing with analysts. He brings them up, promotes them, just like Josh Heupel. They do a lot of unique things in their offense. We saw some of their switch releases in the Super Bowl, similar to what Tennessee did with Jalen Hyatt at times this year. So I just think he would be a perfect fit in that offense. And for Darnell Wright, I'd like to see him land with the Cincinnati Bengals, maybe.
The Tennessee Titans.
I'm just talking about the best fit for the player here, not where, fandom would.
Lord knows we need him. We need him. Come on down.
The Bengals specifically have a need, at tackle, and it feels like Darnell Wright, he would be a good geographical fit. He's from Huntington, West Virginia, just a couple hours away from Cincinnati. Just feels like he would fit in good with what they currently need. But if not there, maybe the Titans will take him at number 11 overall, and everybody can wonder why they reached for an offensive lineman.
Wouldn't put it past them. I like.
I haven't seen the Georgia offensive lineman Broderick Jones mocked to the Titans a bunch, and I wonder about after taking Isaiah Wilson how Titans fans would feel about that.
Yeah, maybe be a little hesitant, but we got a new GM. Maybe he'll make better decisions. We'll see.
He's a Florida guy.
Yeah. But yeah, I like this, Mr. Jones. He says if the Titans draft Hendon Hooker, they would have 2 hookers. We have Amani Hooker too on the team. Multiple hookers for the Titans. But no, I just want to see all these dudes succeed, because they're obviously at this point, if you were on this football team this year at Tennessee, you're going to be in perpetuity forever. You're going to be one of the most beloved guys that ever passed through Tennessee, period. You were just on the team that brought Tennessee back. And
I mean, look at all the love that Grant Frerking, who was on with us, a month or so ago. Look how much love. I mean, he was a guy that didn't play a lot, it was a walk on, and look at how much love that he received. A lot of it was his unique situation with some of the things that he had done in his personal life. But I mean, that guy was at the forefront of everything Tennessee was doing. So that just shows you, if you go to Tennessee, what kind of brand you can make for yourself. Guys like Jacob Warren, Princeton Fant, they weren't the star guys like Jalen Hyatt and Hendon Hooker and even Jalen Wright and Jabari Small, and fans love them just as much, which says a lot about Tennessee, I think.
If you love us, we will love you back a lot. There's plenty of love to go around in the Tennessee fan base for the players. And, shout out to any recruit that's listening. That one's for you. So for the most part, we just wanted to address it because the combine's coming up. But was there anything else with football before we move on? Finally, finish the show off with basketball, Zach.
Yeah, I think that's finally it when it comes to football. I'm sure something will pop up as soon as we get off of here being live, but for now, pretty much covers it.
Yeah, I will say today we started back up our streak of recruits committing to the football
Yeah, that's
team on
true.
Mondays.
That's true.
We had a real hot streak there for a while, I think last offseason, where
Hmm.
recruits were just always committing on Mondays. I don't know if that was like a thing that Tennessee was sort of having them do or something. But maybe we can get that back going. We can get the juju back here on Monday
Yeah,
commits.
just commit before 4 Eastern on Mondays. It's all
That's
good.
all. That's all I ask. Just before we're live on here, that's the only thing that I request of you.
We did have a couple times last year where something happened just as soon as we got done. We're like, you've got to
Well,
be kidding us.
I mean the real one, the best one ever. We were on the show about to sign off, and we were talking about Nico
Oh, yeah.
when Nico committed.
That's right.
Yeah, that one. That's when we knew we were really on a hot streak, where we were
Yeah.
like, "There's no way this guy." We're talking about him on the show, and he committed. So, I mean, frankly, I'll put it this way: you're welcome to all Tennessee fans. I think we were a part of Nico committing to Tennessee. I don't want to take too much credit, but like we were definitely like a factor.
Yeah, I mean, it's indisputable.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Oh, and I meant to from that segment that was supposed to be the Omaha Steaks Who's Cooking segment. I was going to say who's cooking is the players in the NFL Combine for Tennessee. I realized that I forgot to say that just a few minutes ago.
Oh, Jalen Hyde's going to cook up the 40-yard dash. I cannot wait. That's going to be one of the most anticipated 40-yard dashes ever. I mean, I know there's been fast guys before. This isn't just you're a Tennessee guy type thing. I mean, the guy scored 5 touchdowns against Alabama. He instantly became one of the biggest stars in college football thanks to that game. And everybody knows he's fast. So it's not going to be one of those deals where it's like, who is this guy that just ran a 4.2? Everybody's going to be like, oh, Jalen Hyatt. Yeah, kind of figured he'd do that.
I'm very excited to see what happens. And obviously next, I think the Combine ends the day we do our show next week, like next Monday, but we'll discuss the results there and everything that happened on next week's show. But we're going to finish this episode of the show with a little talk about basketball. They absolutely laid the wood to South Carolina, but then also lost to Texas A&M. We're going to talk about that right after I tell you about our final sponsor this week, Rattle and Snap Tennessee Whiskey. There we go. The graphic wasn't working. Rattle and Snap Tennessee Whiskey. Where's my copy? Here it is. We're in the middle of winter now, except thankfully it's about to end, hopefully. But I can tell you, folks, there is nothing better to go with a chilly night here in the great state of Tennessee than an excellent whiskey. And more specifically, I'm talking about Rattle and Snap Tennessee Select Straight Whiskey from Log Still Distillery. Log Still has released a new Tennessee whiskey product line called Rattle and Snap that's named after a long-forgotten game of chance. Rattle and Snap is a whiskey for those who make their own luck. There is a 4-year and an 8-year version of Rattle and Snap, and I switched it up this week, Zach. I put the 4-year version behind me. I usually have the 8, but I watched that Texas A&M game last week, and the 8 is gone. But that's the 4-year right there. It's a beautiful bottle. Looks great on the shelf, but also tastes great in the glass. You can find Rattle and Snap right now in stores across Tennessee, and Rattle and Snap is also available in Kentucky, Indiana, and Mississippi if you're of all that lives in another state. So run and don't walk to get you some Rattle and Snap Tennessee whiskey for those cold winter nights, and maybe some of these a little more lukewarm spring nights. It works for those too. And follow Rattle and Snap on Instagram at Rattle and Snap Whiskey. Now, this segment is the Rattle and Snap Tennessee stat, and I'll lay one on you from basketball this week. There's 2. Well, so here's 2. Zakai Ziegler recorded his 5th points, assists, double-double of the season against South Carolina. And the 5 that he has are now tied for the Tennessee record for most points, assists, double-doubles in a career, not in a season, in a career. He has matched the Tennessee record there. And then Tennessee, with that absolute beatdown of South Carolina, became the first SEC team to record 2 40-plus point wins over a conference opponent in the same season since 1953-54, since the Korean War. That's the first time an SEC team has done that. And frankly, after that football game against South Carolina this season, it couldn't have happened against a better squad, except maybe Alabama this season, because screw those guys. But this was a weird week of basketball because Tennessee lost that game against Texas A&M, and realistically, they should have won. They're a better team than Texas A&M, and it was a tough road environment, but Tennessee is not good in close games, and it was tough. And that reared its ugly head in that Texas A&M game. But then Josiah Jordan-James comes back in this game against Texas A&M, and I think one of the biggest things to talk about here is the emergence of Jemai Mashak. His emergence here, I think there's a chance. I don't want to instill too much confidence here because Tennessee's been so inconsistent all season. But he could be a little bit of an X factor going forward. He has put together some really awesome performances. And that's nice. I really liked it. Did you watch these games, Zach?
Yeah, the Texas A&M when I was still, again, if you put these games in a vacuum and you don't think about the Vanderbilt, Missouri, Florida, and all these other games that haven't went Tennessee's way, you don't have Josiah Jordan-James in that game. It's a road game. They were ranked 25th when Tennessee played them. It's not a bad loss. Like, I don't consider that a bad loss. When you put it in the context of the rest of the season, it's a frustrating loss, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad loss. I do think, though, to go to your point with Mashak, I do think some of what they've been through the last month might end up paying off a little bit here if they can build on this South Carolina game moving forward and Josiah Jordan-James stays healthy, because it's kind of forced Rick Barnes to give Mashak some time to see what he can do and to let him prove himself. And he's proved that you can count on him, maybe when the NCAA tournament starts. You can give him those minutes. It's not a gamble anymore. He's kind of got a little bit of a body of work here. It's small, but over the last couple of weeks, we've seen what he can do. And like you said, be an X factor, possibly moving forward. So, you get him going. You've got Josiah Jordan-James back. He played 21 minutes against South Carolina. Hopefully he can stay healthy through the end of the season. Perhaps they can still make this run that we thought they could make at the beginning of the year. It's the one thing we've kept saying throughout this kind of tough stretch they've been in, is that everything's still there. Even if they fall to like a 3, 4, 5 seed in the tournament, everything's still there. And this is the one year where 4 or 5 seed winning the whole thing would not be shocking to anybody at all, I don't think. So,
no.
Tennessee's got just as good of a chance as anybody. They still have to show they can be consistent. Against South Carolina, they did the things they have to do to win. They shot well from the field. They didn't turn the ball over. I think they only had like 4 turnovers total, 3 or 4 turnovers. They didn't foul a lot. They didn't get in foul trouble. Neither team really got in foul trouble. For Tennessee to have scored that many points, they only shot 6 free throws, but they shot well from threes. They field goal percentage was good in general. They just played smart. Zakai Ziegler, big game, like you said. You don't see a lot of those double-doubles like that in the college game. A lot of times those guys don't score the way Ziegler can score. So, I mean, that's the recipe, right? Just do that. Just do that every week, even if it's, if it's not South Carolina, maybe it's a 10-point win against a better team, but that's the whole recipe. It's that simple.
So, well, this is a good observation from Mr. Jones here before I get into Mashak and that whole thing. Oh, look, Max says we're clowns. Well, that's fun. I wonder if you think he's an Arkansas fan? Is he an Arkansas fan? Is he an Alabama fan? I don't know.
Probably Alabama. We haven't thrown shade at Arkansas, have we?
No. But what is going to happen is he's going to get blocked. Bye. No, this is a point from Mr. Jones right here. He says Texas A&M went to the line 30 plus times to 14 for Tennessee. This is such a huge, huge factor for this Tennessee basketball team. For them to perform at their highest ability, they really need, this isn't good, but it's true, in my opinion. They really need a loose whistle. When it's a tight whistle in a game and they can't play their physical brand of defense, obviously the other team goes to the line a ton, and that's how they rack up points. I mean, if Texas A&M doesn't go to the line that much and Tennessee gets blocks instead of fouls, then, obviously Texas A&M doesn't score nearly as many points and Tennessee probably wins that basketball game. It makes a huge difference there just because Tennessee struggles on offense that much. If a team goes to the line a ton because of a tight whistle, That's a problem. But on top of that, what Meshack brings here that is really exciting to me is he's essentially, if Rick plays it the way I hope he does, he's probably going to take a bunch of minutes from Tyreek Key. And I really like Tyreek Key. He's a local kid, or he's from Salina, I think, Salina, Tennessee. Kind of came back home to Tennessee, and I've liked his effort. But what Meshack does instead of what Key does, Key just works off those screens, and then, if he gets an open shot, he'll take it. He very rarely takes a contested shot. And honestly, throughout the season, very rarely does he make those shots. But when he has made them, it's exciting. He's had some big games where he scored a bunch. But Meshack is a slasher. And what that creates is it kind of stretches the defense, and it creates facilitation for guys on the perimeter, and potentially creates chances for guys on the block. And he is actually pretty dynamic with the ball in his hands. Like, people have compared him to Josh Richardson, I've seen, but I would actually go more like Yves Pons. If Yves Pons at the beginning of his time at Tennessee was a better ball handler, he's obviously physical freak, really lengthy, super tough on defense. I mean, Meshack just brings the heat on defense, and that's so valuable. But offensively, he really can cut to the basket, pass the ball out, cut to the basket, maybe make a move. I mean, he scored a decent amount. He can also make threes, and he's made some threes. And compared to what Key was bringing, which was just, again, coming off those screens, trying to create an open three, getting an open three. And then when he gets an open three, a lot of times he misses it. Like, that was sort of Key's game on offense. Meshack is super strong on defense, and then brings kind of a new element on offense that I really like, and really could make a difference going forward. And I really hope, please, Rick, keep playing him. And because he's just giving 110% out there. I love his effort. He's just been awesome. And then obviously James was great coming back, but he's another guy that I'm like, thank you for the 18 points in that game. Can you do it 2 games in a row? Because it's just been so up and down. It's like Olivier Kamwa too. It's like he'll score 20 and then he'll score 0. And I just need consistency there. But maybe Meshack can shake things up. I hope so.
Do you think moving forward with James like that, what he did against South Carolina, playing 21 minutes, do you think that should be kind of the plan for him? Like, don't try to stretch him out to 30-some minutes a game. Do you think that's a better spot for him, especially with Meshack the way he's playing?
I think that would be perfect. Now that you've kind of discovered the addition of Meshack here, and he's at least in physical build a little similar to Josiah. I wanted to find, so I wrote about Josiah, and I don't know that I realized, let me see, sorry, I got to find it here. But I just wrote a thing last week that was just, what's the deal with Josiah Jordan James? And I found out in the final 8 games of the season last year, here it is right here. In the final 8 games of the 2021-2022 season, James averaged 14.6 points and 7.3 rebounds per game. He shot 46% from 3-point. And he just kind of played at another level. If you could get him to play at that exact level, just like he did at the final stretch of last season, and do it in, 20 to 25 minutes a game, I think that would be absolutely perfect. But also that does have to come along with, Tennessee's a whole different team when Zakai Ziegler is having a great game, which is more often than not. Obviously, I mean, I just said he's been having all of these double-doubles and stuff, and has some really great performances pretty often. But outside of that, just if you can get some of these other factors working on those nights when Zakai's off, I mean, it just seems like if Zakai's off, this team loses. That's when he gets in foul trouble and gets taken off the floor, that offense just becomes so brutal. So brutal. So keep him on the floor, keep him playing well, get Josiah to play a great final stretch like he did last season, get this new element from Meshack. I mean, Mr. Jones brings up here Awaka can continue with his great play. He had an awesome oop slam in that game against South Carolina. Just, build on it rather than kind of some of what we've seen with Rick in the past where he's a little hard-headed and just my way or the highway. Just let it be what it is. And let these guys go out there and play with the strengths that we've seen in these last few games. And, honestly, if if Meshack goes out there and has a nice performance, maybe Tennessee makes an Elite Eight, Final Four this season, and that's kind of one of the instigating factors. Would it not be? It's kind of a Jalen Hyatt situation. Cedric Tillman goes out, and you find out, oh my gosh, Jalen Hyatt might be the best wide receiver in America. Look at this. That would be nice. I wouldn't mind that. Just accidentally finding out that Jemai Meshack's your X factor. That would be cool.
Well, I mean, it's kind of been the thing that we've been hoping would happen all season. We just didn't think it would be him. We thought it would be a more established player, just kind of taking that next step and becoming that guy. I don't think we ever really considered that, hey, maybe the answer isn't being utilized, the proper way at this point. So, yeah, you're definitely right. That would be something if he kind of goes out and becomes a star in the NCAA tournament and helps Tennessee make this Elite Eight or Final Four run. It's definitely what they need to happen. We'll see if it does. How do you feel about this Arkansas game, though, coming up this week, Tuesday night?
It's going to be really, really tough. They're playing
Late
really
game
good basketball.
too. Late game.
They were up by 10 at Alabama on Saturday. They ended up losing by 2.
And to Alabama's credit, the distractions do not seem to be bothering them. They're not bothering Brandon Miller. I know we've already been over that, but that dude's going off like crazy.
They're absolute sociopaths. They don't care about anything. But
yeah, to your point, Arkansas is playing. Yeah, they're
playing solid ball.
Out. Yeah.
I think Tennessee is the better team. It's in Thompson Bowling Arena, which is nice. If it was in Bud Walton, it's a loss in my opinion. But Tennessee's gonna have to play good basketball in this one. Now, Musselman, I want to say Musselman has not won in Thompson Bowling yet in his time at Arkansas, so maybe that bodes well. The fact that it's in Knoxville, if I had to call it, I'd say Tennessee wins, but I think it's going to be really close. I will not be surprised at all if it's very, very back and forth. But the thing is, I mean, if it ends up being very back and forth and it's like a 2-point game coming down the stretch, Tennessee has been so bad in that spot all season.
Oh, no, yeah.
So bad in that spot.
Arkansas will just foul Vestrovi and make him win it.
Yeah, that's all you got to do. Put this team at the line. Oh, because the big men can't make free throws, and then the guys that are supposed to make free throws miss them in crunch time. So,
well, what about? Because I don't know if we'll talk about basketball anymore this week. Then you got Saturday at Auburn. What do you feel there?
Auburn's playing pretty bad down the stretch. I hope it's a win. I'm not gonna hold my breath. Playing at Auburn is just.
You made me feel pretty good about this.
I mean, Auburn absolutely got their teeth kicked in by Kentucky over the weekend, and Kentucky's playing good basketball, and they're playing good basketball at the right time. Yada yada yada. It's what happened. What has happened a lot with Calipari because he has so many young guys, but with Auburn, that it's a really, really hard place to win a basketball game. Honestly, like, to their credit, I don't think I ever thought I'd be saying that about Auburn before Pearl showed up. But I mean, it's a tough venue to win in. And so I'll say this is a win, in my opinion, if Tennessee splits these two games. Now, if they can win both, they are locked into if they win both, I believe there's no way that they could not get the double bye in the SEC tournament. If they lose to Auburn, I want to say Missouri would also have to lose a game, or else they will get the 4th spot and get that double bye. But I don't, honestly, I would rather this happen. If Tennessee doesn't get the double bye, I'd rather just lose that second game in the SEC tournament and then move on to the NCAA tournament. Put all of the power behind. I mean, I want to win both. Believe me, I will be ecstatic to win in the SEC tournament and win in the NCAA tournament. But to me, it's all about the NCAA tournament this season. You won the SEC tournament last year. We saw Rick do it. You stamped that one. That's great. Take me to a Final Four, Rick. Please. But on that note, so later this week, our midweek segment this week is going to be talking about, it's going to be after the Arkansas game. So we're going to see what happens in that one. And then we're going to talk about how far Tennessee might make it in the NCAA tournament, in our personal opinion. At their current stage, we're going to talk about how we feel about that, because it's obviously, with Rick, it's been a dicey prospect making it past the Sweet 16 in the tournament. So,
well, Mr. Jones has a comment here that I love, and it kind of plays into what you just mentioned there about going into the tournament. He says, "Can Meshack become March Shack?"
March Shack. That's
love
so
it.
good. That's great.
I don't know if it'll catch on, Mr. Jones. It'll catch on here. It'll catch on in this house, and I'll tweet it. I don't know if anybody else will.
I'm not gonna lie,
but I like it.
Yeah, we might have to steal that for a tweet. We'll give you credit.
Yes.
That's really good, March Shack. I just know. I mean, obviously, if they do win in the SEC tournament, though, I will say this: please let us play Alabama. Give me them.
Absolutely.
I want justice delivered to that team. And honestly, I don't care if it's Tennessee. Obviously, it would be my greatest joy to have it be Tennessee, but somebody beat those clowns. Oh my gosh.
First round. Yeah.
Yes, please. I mean, obviously, they almost lost to South Carolina, so we know what's possible. Just finish it this time, whoever that might end up being.
And they're so lucky they didn't play in Thompson Bowling the first game after all that happened.
Oh, that would have been. Oh, I mean, the way that those games fell for them, I do think. Don't they play? No, they already played at Auburn. They have Auburn at home, but I think they do play another like pretty tough road game that might actually have like a decent home crowd. I don't know their final two games.
Let's see who they did. They play versus Auburn this week, then at Texas A&M on Saturday.
See, Texas A&M, that'll be packed. I mean, obviously there was a chance that was going to come down to be the SEC championship for the regular season, and then Texas A&M blew it against Mississippi State. Way to go! But no, I mean, dude, that'll be packed out, and you know he's going to get taunted at that game badly. Yeah, the SEC tournament's going to be brutal for that.
Oh
game.
Yeah.
Oh. Every fan from every team across the SEC just being there, bearing down on Alabama. Ooh, it's going to be fun.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be a good time. I can't wait to see what happens. And again, I hope Tennessee gets the chance to knock them off. God, that would be beautiful. So I think that's it, though, for this version of the old Big Orange podcast. I am Charlie Burris. That is Zach Reagan. Thank you to everybody for watching. We appreciate it so much. You guys are too kind to us, and go support the sponsor, Superbook, Rattle and Snap Whiskey, Omaha Steaks, Farm Bureau Health Plans. Go support them because they support us. But otherwise, social medias, YouTube, rate, review, subscribe, hit the like button, yada yada yada. You're here. You know what to do. You made it this far, so thanks again for watching, and we'll talk to y'all in that midweek segment.
See you guys later.